Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. This is a slightly different 10-minute moan where it's more of an appeal than a moan. However, no doubt I'll have a few moans in there. Okay? Now, the reason for this video is, although the Westminster elections haven't even been called yet, the SNP are already out campaigning. They've been out the last few weekends, even seen the other day there, Hamza Yusuf's out in the campaign trail, chapping doors with their delegates for Westminster, which I think is a bit weird and early. However, it maybe gives you a wee bit of an insight in how serious they're taking the most popular polls suggesting that they'll lose seats at Westminster, that they're actually out campaigning before the election date's been given. Now, the election for Westminster must happen before the end of January 2025. So Parliament would be dissolved mid-December if there was not an election before then. So I think it's fair to say it can happen any time now. A lot of people were suggesting November. How much accuracy in that, I don't know. The USA elections will be around about the same time. That might have an influence, might not want two elections, going at the one time, but who knows? But we will be having one soon, and it will be the next election that we have. The Scottish Parliament elections are not due until after that, and I can't see Hamza being too keen to call a snap election for that Parliament anytime soon. So they've started this campaigning, and their theme seems to be make Scotland Tory free, which, if you don't like Tories, would seem like quite a reasonable campaign. But what they're claiming is that they're the only party in Scotland that can do that. So they're using this fear of Tories and the sort of level of hatred that a lot of people have got against them as a driver for people to vote SNP at the Westminster election by telling lies. Because they're claiming that they're the only party that can free Scotland of Tories, because in each Tory seat in Scotland, SNP came second. But that's not true to say that you're the only party that can get rid of them, because if those people decided that they don't want to vote SNP, everybody that voted Tory, then they might vote Labour, which might seem like a weird swing, but could happen. So to say and to go to market saying you're the only party that can make Scotland Tory free is completely untrue and completely disingenuous to the people you expect to vote for you. Now, I'm sick of the lies, and I want to start doing something to counter their lies. And I've started this in November with this particular channel. And I want people not to join me, but I want to talk to as many people as possible. I want, whether that's individuals through this medium, I'm more than happy to speak to political parties and any other groups of people who are like-minded and just have had enough of the SNP. And what I want to do is start a campaign called Make Westminster SNP Free. And as I say, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody with similar mind, with similar aims, whether that's a Tory party, a Labour party, a group of unionists, a group, whatever, and try and push the narrative or just perfectly put it on the table. They've came to market saying they're anti-Tory. That's fine. That's your entitlement, whatever you want to go to. And I want everybody else to have the drive. Let's make Westminster SNP free. Now, who am I and why am I doing this? My name's Craig Houston. Between 2012 and 2015, I was involved in quite a serious campaign, not by design, by default and accident. I get involved in a campaign, a non-political campaign, to remove some people from their positions. And in 2015, that campaign ultimately became successful. And that wasn't just because of Craig Houston, that was because a lot of people with the same aims got together and drove in the same direction, and ultimately became a successful campaign and achieved its goals. Simple. And I learned a lot during that. Around about the same time, I became politically aware. I wasn't really that much into politics before. I would vote, consider carefully who I should vote for, and tick a box in a ballot paper. That's how much politics meant to me back then. However, between 2012 and 14, when we had the run up to the Scottish independence referendum, I became more politically aware. At that time, I was involved in my other campaign, 2012 to 15, so I couldn't really do much. And, no real appetite, to be fair, to do much politically at the time. And since then, this has evolved into a severe hatred, and I pull no punches and have made no apologies for it, but a severe hatred for the SNP and what they've done to Scotland. And I will never forgive them for it. They have ripped the country apart. I've done videos about this previously, about the effects of the referendum and what happened after that, and how it's affected society in Scotland, and we now have a really divided country. And I will never forgive SNP and their cult for that. So I became more politically aware during that time. And the driver for me was when Matheson ripped off the public purse with his £11,000 phone bill. And I decided to start doing a series of videos. They've turned into daily videos since then. And they've had a varying amount of success. Most are watched by over 20,000 and some 100,000, and one in particular 130,000. So the videos are reaching people. And I will continue to do them. I vow to continue to do them until the SNP are no longer in power in Scotland. And what I want to do is I want to connect with as many like-minded people as possible and put plans in place. I've got an idea, and again, I've made a video about this. I'll put a link to that, which I believe would help move them from Scotland. We could potentially bankrupt them. Again, I've done a video about that. So this call is, I've got a WhatsApp group, which I'll put in the link description, and I would appeal to as many of you as possible with like-minded to A, join that group, and B, tell 10 friends about that group, and we'll build that group, and that can be the sort of place to put ideas and share ideas and have discussions and potentially lead to meetings and etc. going forward. The SNP recently started a new website which was to help the Yes campaign. It's called yes.scot, right? They filled it with complete nonsense. They're putting wee infograms on, putting them out on social media, spreading them as if they're gospel truths, and some people will believe them. Want to act against that. React to that as just blowing all these myths out of the water and educating people that they are absolute crackpots. There's also things that I want to consider. Right now, I think the reform, I'm not 100% sure how this will play out, but I've got a fear about reform just now. If they were to put candidates in Scotland, it's just going to dilute the unionist vote again. Or not even so much unionists, just anti-SNP vote, because there will be people who want independence that are not voting for them anymore as well. And I'm quite happy to talk to these people. These people have already came to me and helped me with some information previously. And I'm quite comfortable with that arrangement, talking to people who are not unionists, who do want independence, but have just had enough of the SNP. These people are not bad people. They just have slightly different views on the future of Scotland to me and you. However, and we'll counter these claims, and if we can use this platform for putting out messages, my messages and others, I have no problem doing so. We've raised the channel quite considerably since November. We're up to 13,000, around about 13,000 subscribers pretty quickly, and I see that figure growing. So the appeal is, let's get together, let's get some plans in place, and let's make Westminster SNP free. And I don't think it's that difficult, but it will involve putting the big boy pants on, discussing things like reform. Because if there was only, up until recently, there was only one option for those wanting independence, and that was tick a box for SNP. We now could be just giving people who don't want to vote SNP another possible vote and dilute the message. If there was only one non-SNP party, if this was a two-party state, we could blow SNP out of the water so easily, because there's that many people who don't like them. But those who don't like SNP have got too many choices, in my opinion, and that dilutes the vote. And as I say, I'm not 100% sure if reform's a good thing or a bad thing. My instinct tells me it's just going to help dilute the vote and potentially help the SNP remain in power. Now, the Westminster election is actually the best one to start, because you don't have this idiotic two-vote system and proportional representation. You have first past the post. So it's far easier to get rid of them for Westminster and really, really give them a kicking at that. Far easier than the Scottish elections. And I'll explain to you, I'm not anti proportional representation. It's not a bad theory. The reality is, what we've ended up in Scotland is the Green Party, who now have a coalition, so they're in government. The two people at the head of that party who are now on the Scottish Parliament cabinet, they managed to get the grand total of 1,000 and 1,500 votes each in an election and end up cabinet ministers. That is not sanity. That is insanity. We've got a guy, Ross Greer, the ginger-headed boy that wants to make himself some spokesman for I don't know what this week, right? That boy has had more parliamentary meetings than anybody else in the parliament, right? He gets more airtime than anybody else in the Green Party. He attracted 800 votes and gets a large say in how Scotland gets run. So that's the sort of odd things that can happen with the Scottish voting because we have this two-vote thing in the proportional representation. Proportional representation, in my eyes, was to give a party who maybe get 20% of the vote but no seats a say in power because they get 20% of the votes. The complete opposite's happened in Scotland. You get people with hardly any votes. I could get more than 800 votes by walking to my two local pubs and ask them to vote me if I wanted to become a councillor, an MP, or an MSP. Right? We've got a guy now having an influence in Scottish government with 800 votes. That's wrong. So Westminster's a far easier one. And if we put the big boy pants on and we decide for one term, do you know what? I'm going to forget that I'm a Conservative. I'm going to forget that I'm a Labour person. I'm just going to do what I think's right for Scotland. And we do that for one Parliament, we could bankrupt the SNP because they rely so heavily on their minister's levy. The SNP charge each of their MSPs and their MPs a portion of their wages, which goes into the coffers of their party. This is a party that has a deficit right now because £600,000 has disappeared out the pot. That's why they're getting investigated through branch firm. Their membership's dropped year on year, and they've already got the last 2 years have had large deficits. They can't afford to lose that levy. If we get our act together and get them out of Westminster and they don't have that levy going into their party, and this isn't even considering short money. Short money will not bankrupt their party if it stops. For the simple reason, the short money they get, that every party gets from Westminster when they have MPs, that is money that you spend being an MP. So if you're not an MP, okay, you don't bring the money in, but you're not spending it anyway. But the levy money that they get is right into their party coffers to use to run their party. If we, as a nation, can stop that at the next election, they're struggling financially. If we then repeat that in the Scottish elections, which will be about 18 months after the UK ones, we make a bigger dent. And we could actually be putting the big boy pants on, sort them out over the course of one, if not two elections. One term in a parliament by voting against your normal could probably get rid of these people forever. And we just need to be brave enough to do it. So thanks for listening. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Please share it. I'll put links, as I say, to the WhatsApp group, invite you all onto it. And I've got 2 ears in one mouth, and I'm quite prepared to use them in that ratio by listening to people. And I'm quite happy to talk to any party out there that's not the SNP and any group of people who have got similar views to me and want to get on a campaign to rid Westminster of the SNP. Have a great day. Cheery bye now.